You can learn so many divisions of marketing. You can, make sure that you understand those areas. But if you don't understand your customer and you can't apply your knowledge, it doesn't matter. Business needed a functioning website and a functioning platform and needed to meet customers where they were at and show up on social and show up on the platforms where they shop. Content is everything. Keyword research, making sure that you have that in your product descriptions and your product title.
If I'm a business owner that's like a multi-million-dollar business and I want to grow into the billion-dollar business, what is it that besides luck and timing, obviously that's a key part for a lot of businesses, what levers can they pull in the marketing, on the marketing side of things to grow? Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Lyndi Smith. Lyndi is a seasoned marketer and a business leader with a proven track record in scaling global brands. With over 2 decades of experience, Lyndi has developed expertise in integrating digital strategies with business development to drive growth. As the founder of Seeds of Time, she has harnessed her skills to grow the business by applying innovative digital tactics learned from her time at Young Living Essential Oils, where she ended as the Chief Marketing Officer. At Young Living, she played a pivotal role in scaling the company's revenue from millions to over $2 billion annually. Lyndi is recognized for her leadership in strategic marketing and her ability to foster long-term connections with customers through authentic brand experience. Join us today as we take a look behind the scenes of a $2 billion global brand and the digital strategy that fueled its growth. Welcome to the show, Lyndi.
Hey, Eli. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you. I know that, so I was thinking back, I started a podcast in like 2019, and I remember talking to you, be like, hey, I want you on, but I only recorded like 3 episodes. I never actually got it out. And so as soon as I started this podcast over a year ago, I remember you were first on the list. And I remember reaching out to you and you're like, yeah, let's do it. But we have just struggled lining up our time. And part of it was me, part of it was you. We were both in the middle of starting new businesses. And so I can't tell you how excited I am to actually have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for the opening. I felt like your welcome was unnecessary. You made me sound way cooler than I am.
Well, if I had taken a little more time, I could have put more into it because I know you've done a lot more than what I mentioned in there. And I know this just so the audience knows, I reported to Lyndi at Young Living I was at Young Living for 8 years. So we've known each other for 10 years now. And the majority of that time I reported to you. We did bounce back and forth with other bosses and stuff, but the majority of the time I reported to Lyndi. And those were some of my best years of my whole entire career. Just the amount of stuff that I learned from Lyndi, the experiences that she gave me, the growth that she allowed me to have professionally. I couldn't be more grateful, Lyndi, than to call you one of my favorite bosses and to have had that experience. So thank you so much for that.
Well, I need to return that. So I hired Eli, right? I think I hired you. So when you joined us, I knew nothing about digital. Young Living was not focused on digital, but we knew we needed to have a presence. And that's what we brought you on for. So I'm a firm believer that you need to hire people that are better than you and know more about their subject than you do, which is hard because I like to level up my own skills. And so you have to, raise with me and make sure that you're always one step ahead. And you were that at Young Living. You always knew more. You always just grew on those skills. And the reason you bounced around is because digital sits in this, I won't say weird space, but in the space of it's a marketing tool. Absolutely. You have to use it as marketing. But if it doesn't have IT support, you can't get anywhere. And that's where you always had to be in this place of really making sure that the customer experience and the marketing needs are being met, but IT can actually deliver on what we needed. And so you were great at that. Your mind is able to think both ways. Although I will say, I think you're a marketer at heart.
Yeah, I think I am. I did get a lot of experience on the IT side, though, when I moved over to IT. So I was in marketing and then went over to IT and then back to marketing and back to IT and back to marketing before I ended up leaving Young Living. But understanding how much like the technical side was involved in the marketing was eye-opening for me to jump in there and really understand the experience. When I led up the digital or the product management team at the same time, it was easy to go on the website and be like, oh, this is where people are struggling. And this is why we need to change it to do X, Y, and Z, which allowed me to like funnel that into the digital marketing side, which I think was a great move for Young Living to combine those. And so it was great experience for me. And I think those were some really good times at Young Living.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, Lyndi, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the show, I say that a lot. I feel like I say meat and potatoes a lot. So if anybody listens to my podcast often, I'm sorry that I say that so much. Before we dive into
We
really
do
the question and
apologize to all
answer,
the vegans out
all the vegans anybody who doesn't like meat and potatoes. I mean, I don't like baked potatoes, but I like other forms of potatoes, so I guess it's okay. But before we dive into the question and answer section of the show, I like to get to know the guest on a personal level. And I feel like I know you pretty well, but for the audience, I'd love to hear your story. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What did you want to be when you were little? And then how did you go from there to getting into this amazing digital world?
Okay. How much time do we have? Just kidding. I'll make it short and sweet.
Plenty of time.
Okay. So I grew up in a small town in Payson, Utah. And when I was graduating high school, I ended up getting my certified nurse's assistant diploma. And that allowed me to work as a CNA at a hospital and a nursing home. And I knew I wanted to go into the medical field. So I ended up going to college at Utah Valley University and was going to be a registered nurse. Well, during that time, I ended up getting a part-time job at Young Living. And they were actually in a rundown school that had been closed as they're condemned as a school. They purchased that location and were running it for their business. And it was perfect because they used the lunchroom to pour all of their oils, and they had a great, all the rooms were all the different apartments. And so the setup was really nice for them. But I started there. It was paying me $1 more an hour than I was getting as a CNA. And so I jumped over, as a college student and was just working on the phones part-time. And it was awesome. And so during the course of that, I grew with Young Living. So I was taking orders. I moved into customer service. And at the time I was going to resign to go to school full-time, they offered me a position as head of their call center. And I was getting married at the time. And so it was a really good transition for me to kind of hold on to that job with some security, still go to school part-time, still trying to be a nurse. But it allowed me to kind of stick with Young Living. And that's when they moved into their first Lehigh location. And so it felt like it was, it was kind of moving up with the company as it was growing, and it was an exciting move. Well, after that, I got the opportunity to move into sales and then into marketing. And during those jumps, I realized that I really do love the business side of things. I did love the company itself. Specifically, when I was going into nursing, I wanted to help people. And when I realized that you can do that with wellness products, which really sit more on the preventative side before someone gets sick, I got really passionate about it. I got passionate about the products and the direct sales model itself, empowering women and men to own businesses where they may have thought they couldn't and run their own business was super exciting. So I loved the direct sales space as well. And so I ended up over the years, I think I was about 5 years in at Young Living, had decided to switch my degree to business with an emphasis in marketing and joined the marketing team and kind of grew from there. So that's a very long-winded way to say why and how I got into marketing and with Young Living.
Well, your story it's not uncommon, right? At least the pattern of the path. There's a lot of people who are like going to college, especially people who I've interviewed on this podcast. They were going to college for something else. They ended up getting a job or an internship or something that introduced them to marketing in the digital world. And then they change their degree or transition what they thought they were going to do. And what's crazy is that, when you and I were younger, like digital marketing wasn't even a thing. So when we were in high school, they're like, hey, what do you want to be when you grew up? We couldn't even have predicted that we could have done something like this. So it's really cool that you were able to like grow through Young Living and get the experience in all the different areas, which I think really helped out when you were the CMO, because you really understood what it meant to be at the call center. You understood what it meant to be in all these the business. It wasn't just like somebody coming from the outside who was like, hey, I'm just a marketing person. Like you really had that empathy for other people. So when we created our marketing plans, I remember you specifically always made us go and get buy-off from all of the other departments that were going to be touched in one way or another. And I think it's because you had a lot of that experience in the other departments beforehand, right? Do you feel like your website traffic is kind of in a slump right now? Or maybe over the last couple of weeks or months, it's actually dipped quite a bit and you cannot figure out what to do next? Go to fireusmarketing.com/meeting to schedule a free meeting with me where we can look at your website, talk about your frustrations, and see if there's anything that I can do to help you out. The meeting is absolutely free. There's no strings attached. If I can help you, I'd love to. Again, go to fireusmarketing.com/meeting. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add that the best marketers, in my opinion, understand the customer. I mean, you can learn so much in school. You can learn so many divisions of marketing. You can, make sure that you understand those areas. But if you don't understand your customer and you can't apply your knowledge, it doesn't matter. And so growing up in the call center, having marketers sit on the phone with the customers, having tools now that you can actually watch a customer walk through your website, those are things that make better marketers. Absolutely, 100%. So I do not regret that time I spent in the call center. And even in sales, being, face to face with customers and helping them grow their business, that empowered me and impacted the way that I look at marketing for sure.
Especially from the direct sales side, there's two different types of customers. There's the direct sales customers, and then there's regular customers and the people that they sell to, right? And so being in sales, you had to empathize with the all of the brand partners had to understand the front end and the back end. All of the tools that were being used on both sides. And they had to understand it well enough to educate their friends, family, and all of their customers. And so I bring up some of those tools. I loved some of the tools that allowed us to communicate with the people on the website, that allowed us to see what they were doing and, look at the heat maps and watch the actions that they were taking. So we could go and say, actually, this button doesn't make sense here. We need to move it to another page. And those were some of the funnest times. Having a website that got so much traffic, it was easy to experiment with.
Absolutely. I remember when I joined the marketing team, I think it was 2005-ish, maybe 2006. We didn't even think about digital. Like there was no front end website. Yes, people could come and order from us. We did think a lot about the back end. So the virtual office or the back office, we had a lot of thoughts there. We went through several different platforms. I remember that over the years, but that was not even a consideration. If someone wanted to order, they did it through their upline, who would then call us over the phone. They would do it at an event, which was really big, right? Belly to Belly is such a big place to place orders and to really get to know products in the direct sales space. And so the website did not need to perform like it does today, right? It wasn't something that it had to do. And that company, Young Living specifically, it grew without I don't want to make I hope this doesn't sound bad, but without a functioning website, right? It didn't have to perform. It didn't have to function. So it didn't for a very, very long time. Yeah. I was going to say the first thing that I remember doing in marketing was launching a blog. And it was crazy. It was like something that was new. We did it on WordPress. It was clunky, but that was our first, or at least my first experience with Young Living, really like tiptoeing in the digital space. And the fact that we could provide free content, free education on oils when that was like unknown in this space, right? It was still like snake oil and what is this thing you're selling? Like we could provide real education through a blog. That right there, I think was our first step to fueling the growth of Young Living, was being able to really communicate, create a community, I would even say, because then they knew our blogs were dropping every week. And we did that before we even had an email strategy or social. Like blog was that first step out there. And so today, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but even today on my new website or my new company's website, education, free education and information through my blog is very, very important to me. And I see it. I see as soon as they come in, they look at the blog. It's a great way to attract customers for one, but it really does convert and lead to sales. And so I'm a big advocate and fan of blogs.
So was there like a trigger point or something that happened to you where you were like, you know what, we need to get into digital marketing. Like we need to start promoting this. Like besides just like starting a blog, like was there, somebody pulled data or an agency came to you or just talking to coworkers, you're like, hey, we've been around for a long time and we haven't focused on this. What was it that made you say, we need to actually build a team and focus on this on a global scale?
We finally had competition. That's it. We finally had other oil companies coming onto the scene. And we were no longer the only source for essential oils. And that made us realize that a lot of things, right? Not just digital, but our brand wasn't refined. Our product offering and the product mix was all over the place. we didn't really know who we were to our customers. And then, of course, all of that comes together in a digital place, your website. And when you started to organize everything that we did and try to get it on a website, it really amplified. We were all things to all people, didn't have a strong story. And so the competition drove that. And I'm actually grateful for that. I think having competition is very healthy. And so that was our first insights into what are we doing? Who are we? Why are we not organized? What products are we offering? Are we reaching the right customers? So I would say that's probably the main driver. And then, of course, once you peel back the layers, it's many things. Like the digital time. By the mid 2000s, which we were already late to the game, every business needed a functioning website and a functioning platform, and needed to meet customers where they were at and show up on social and show up on the platforms where they shopped. So, yeah, but competition's the short answer.
I feel like a lot of people probably have that same story. And I feel like a lot of people, sadly, still don't focus on it in the right way, understanding their competition, right? A lot of the clients or potential clients that we talk to, they don't really want to move forward and like spend money on that, like from a budgetary standpoint, until we show them what their competition is doing.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, okay, we should probably work on this too then. And it's real easy to get left behind in the digital space. Like the amount, like you're following on social media, the amount of time and effort it takes to rank with SEO. Like, I mean, most agencies require a 12-month contract because it takes time to build an SEO. So if your competition's been doing it for 5 years and you're just now thinking about allocating budget to that, one, you might be a little late, but two, it's never too late to start, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Lyndi, what are you currently working on that excites you? Tell us about Seeds of Time.
Okay. I jumped into a space where I could kind of own my own time, be present with my family, which is needed right now. And I'm running a support company to Young Living. So we sell all of their books and their branded merchandise. We show up at all of their events, and we're a great partner with them. But the best thing about it is 100% owned by me. So I don't have to go into the office. I don't have to set specific hours. Like, it's time freedom for me right now that I really need. The business itself, it is a startup. We are officially a year old now, which is very exciting. In fact, we're going into, I think we're a year and a half. So now it's already March. So not quite a year and a half, but almost. It's very exciting. Many challenges with the startup. The most important, or I guess I would say the uniqueness that I experienced, is I had a built-in customer base by launching this company. It was replacing an existing support company to Young Living. And then, of course, it is targeted to an audience that already exists. And so I was grateful for that's kind of the uniqueness that got me started. I would say it become my challenge, right? Because now we're very much customized and tailored to a Young Living audience, when what we offer is a lot bigger than that, right? Any wellness advocate, any essential oil user would really love what Seeds of Time has to offer. And so now it's trying to really branch out and go beyond just being a support to Young Living.
What are some of the challenges that you faced? It's been almost a year and a half. So what are some of the challenges you faced specifically on the digital side?
So I will start with what I did. So to start Seeds of Time, I hit the easy button. And what I mean by that is I used templates wherever I could. One thing that I saw Young Living do is they spent a lot of time with top leaders, specific customers, I should say, targeted customers that influenced how their digital responded. So the problem with that is now you're customizing everything, right? So now it's no longer just a templated checkout process, right? Or a templated backend. Now you're having to customize piece after piece, which then required them to bolt on, or I'd even say like a Band-Aid approach to try to make all of these unique requests happen. So I specifically, on purpose, found a template that I liked. And although I wish it did more things, I have not messed with it. And I'm really focusing on content. So the content on the website, how quickly it responds, the stories that I'm telling and the storytelling, how important that is. Getting more visuals on the website, getting authentic information like customer testimonials and product ratings, things that are that are templates, but can be that I just haven't pulled in yet, or brands haven't necessarily done. I'm working on things like that. So I have my days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be able to preview the first 5 pages of this book, right? I know customers will buy it if they could just preview the first 5 pages. but that's a plugin. I can do that in the future. But I look at it and I'm thinking, hey, I can take a screenshot or a shot of the book, a photo, and I can upload that. At least they can read the first 2 pages. It's an image, which if you're on mobile, which most people are, you can click on it, you can zoom in, you can still read all of the copy. So I'm reminded of a story, and I don't mean to go on a small tangent, but I know when you were in digital, Eli, how many times did people come to us around the globe that said, hey, I really want this new website built out. I need all of these new functions. And we were able to solve that within the current templates just by upgrading content. Like, look, there's so
Every
many
day.
times. Yeah. We're like, oh, we'll just change where this button's sitting. We'll just change the flow here. And it would solve the problem before we had to actually invest in technology. It's crazy to me.
That was key because it's all about asking the right questions too. Okay, you want a whole website, but what problem are you trying to solve? And then they gave us that problem. One, most of the time we were already working on something on the back end that just hadn't launched yet. Mm-hmm. Or two, it could have been solved with like just PDFing something and putting it on a link for them, right? Like, so we could solve those problems without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on technology to make it happen. So you're absolutely right.
Yes. So I am finding workarounds, but I'm using an existing template. I think that is key. And then content. Content is everything. Keyword research, making sure that you have that in your product descriptions and your product titles. The blog that I mentioned before, that blog content, keeping it relevant to and fresh has been really important to finding, people finding the brand. It's hard too. Finding a business name is challenging. Everything is already trademarked. Everything's already taken. I love the name that we were able to come up with. I think it sits nicely with this idea that, Seeds of Time is also about seeds of wisdom and growing with a company. But people Google Seeds of Time actually looking for the herb thyme. And so we've really tried to figure out how do we stand out in other ways, and how do you make sure your content is resonating and responding on Google? So there's a lot I think that we can still do. Absolutely. But if I were to give any advice to someone starting, I would say use templates, keep it simple, focus on your content first. Absolutely. Content first.
I love that. So I'm a business owner out there and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, what is the biggest takeaway from Lyndi? So you have experience, and I think everyone goes through this path. I think, unless you graduate college to be a doctor, you just go straight into being a doctor, right? But most people who own a business have worked at other companies before. And what I love that you're doing right now is you're explaining how at Young Living, I did all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And here's what I wish I would have done different. And so now that I'm starting my new business, here's what I am doing different. So I want to drill down into that a little bit more. So you've mentioned at Young Living, we customized everything. And a lot of times we didn't have a choice just because of the business rules that we had or with the old, archaic technology that currently existed. And if we were to replace the technology, a lot of times we had to unplug, 50 spider webs from that old technology and figure out where to replug it in. So it didn't make sense a lot of times to move forward with the new technology. So you mentioned that you're trying to keep it simple by using templates. So templates and not really moving forward with the grass is greener on the other side, or I can just spend money on that plugin, or I'll just spend money on that. So keeping it simple. You've mentioned content, doing a blog, making sure that you're storytelling correctly, all of that. What other things did you learn from Young Living, whether you learned what not to do or things that you did really well that you're I got to do this again with Seeds of Time?
I would say social is another place we haven't talked a lot about yet. Mm-hmm. I would, and I don't have data to back this, but I would bet most people are finding Seeds of Time through social. So people aren't necessarily, they know that Young Living has a new support company. Who are they? And so I would just remind business owners that your social presence is the face of your business. That's the personality of your business. That is where people are going to say, who are you? I want to get to know you. What do you offer? And so having social as part of your digital strategy is so important. You've got to show up. That's also where for me, that's where my customers are. So, and specifically Instagram. I have to show up on Instagram. If I'm not there, I don't exist to them. So authentic storytelling content on Instagram has been the place where it matters most to me. And it's unique per brand. So I'm not going to say that's a blanket statement, but you do need to find out what social platform your customers are on and show up where they're at for sure. So social is another big place. We haven't talked email. So I learned this early on with Seeds of Time. Emails every week to get content out there and to make sure that they know you're there is not helpful. That does not create click-throughs. That does not create conversion. 2 really well-written emails a month that actually give them information that they want to hear has completely overtaken the need to do an email every week. So, and I would even argue to say, and I haven't tried this, but I would even argue to say 1 really good email every month where you show up with exactly what they want to hear, that's more important than just blasting them daily or weekly. I can't even tell you how many brands I shop with, and then I get, 6 emails within the next couple of days from them, and I'm annoyed, right? Even if it's a brand I love. I'm like, okay, I've heard from you. I've already looked at your website. I know what products you offer. Unless you're giving me a sell or a deal, I don't need to hear from you. So nurturing through email is something that needs to be really cared about and I think focused on as well. So I talked a lot about channels where you just throw content out, and I shouldn't say that lightly, but you're giving education, you're giving quick tips on social, you're giving information through a blog. Email quality is so important to brands to people to stick with your mailing list.
Yeah, I think the other point that you touched on, thinking of information. Information is so easy to come by these days. Like figuring out how to be unique enough that it sets you apart, not just from your competition, but you can't just go to like ChatGPT and type in, what's Lyndi doing today in Seeds of Time? Like having that email be very specific to you because, the information is out there on ChatGPT that says like, hey, what can I use lavender for? There's lots of stuff out there. So like you can write blog posts about it, you can send emails about it, but you have to have a unique piece to it that captures your audience. That's like, oh, I couldn't have got that from anywhere else but here.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. That's a great point. So really understanding the uniqueness. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great point. One other thing, I'm going to go back to hitting the easy button on email, just to jump back a little bit. And I don't want it to be an ad about other platforms, but automated emails, if you get the right platform that you've set up your website, you've hit the easy button, right? You're not doing custom plugins. You're not trying to do anything unique. You can also do that with email, where you capture the email list right on your website and you create that automated email. So you're talking to them during an abandoned cart, right? You're talking to them as soon as you welcome them, right? Or maybe you do a post-purchase follow-up. You can automate all of that so that it feels like that you're talking to that customer directly and you're making them feel like they're part of your community. So that exists. It's easy. It's an easy way to do it. Some of them, depending on the platform, it might be a plugin, but I would say you can automate and hit the easy button when it comes to email too.
So to dive into a little bit more of the specifics, I know like we're not promoting any platforms. We don't get paid for any of this. But if I'm a business owner out there hearing this, I want to know like, okay, what platform do you use? Maybe there's multiple, but like,
Sure.
Can you walk us through like what analytics tools do you use? What email tools do you use? Do you use anything to help batch your content for social media? Like walk me through some of those specifics so I can, as a business owner, go and test some of those out myself.
Okay, so I am right now working. I'm going to go with where I started because I think that's probably the most useful. I do have some upgraded tools that I'm starting to use. We're now, a little bit older, a little year and a half old. I'm also getting a bigger audience. And so I do need more tools that you have to pay for. But on the side of tools that are inexpensive, I started out on Shopify. I'm a big fan of Shopify. I know nothing about coding. I know nothing about, how to build a website. And this is a templated process. So you pick a template that you love. There's paid templates or free templates. The paid templates are a one-time thing. It's not like you're paying over time. So big fan of Shopify. Shopify also has an email tool. It is the place where I do all my automated emails. So abandoned cart, it triggers it right there. I will say as far as visual, making it really beautiful, it's a little more challenging on a platform like Shopify, which isn't an email tool versus like, pulling in MailChimp, I'm going to throw out just any other, one that's actually built for email. But I still used it and I loved it and it worked. So I would say Shopify is the place for all of that. On the social media side, the business suite, just Meta Business Suite, it works well. You can schedule your posts. You can respond to customers. You can pull in your Facebook and your Instagram into one. And it also has, tools. I would say also, and then of course, Google Analytics, and you can pull that in. So that right there to get started, I feel like that was enough. Now, again, I am going to look to you to fill in the holes because you are the digital expert. But for me, that has been enough to get me where I'm at right now. So what would you say as far as things that I missed that are just inexpensive, quick tools that you should be using?
Yeah, I mean, from an analytics standpoint, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, number one. Like, if you're not on Google Search Console, you're missing the boat. Google Analytics is, but since they changed to G4, you have to have more skills than before, or you pay somebody to build out templates and reports for you. And Google Search Console is the easiest thing in the world to use. So from an analytics standpoint, I would do that. If you're on Shopify, definitely use some of their native plugins for emails. If not, there's Klaviyo is a big one that has like a freemium version in the beginning. There's MailChimp that has a freemium version. And then as you grow, you can pay more, and then you may outgrow some of them and end up using, like we use Marketo at Young Living. But I mean, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but you have tens of millions of people in it.
Yes.
And sending lots of emails. So Shopify is great for e-commerce. If you have e-commerce, Shopify. I love WordPress. I have e-commerce websites on WordPress as well. And we have some clients on Wix and Square. There's lots of places out there that you pay pretty minimum, like per month, for hosting and the service. And you can pretty much get everything you want from any of those options, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't Young Living use SendGrid for a minute too? Because I've been testing that one, playing with it. My app's actually hooked to SendGrid as far as password reset and things like that. So I do have an account there. And then Klaviyo, yes, that's the one I've just started using. So I love that you called that out.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, and I really liked that. And there, you can make the images more visually appealing than I could in Shopify. Shopify still works.
Using Klaviyo?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean,
yes,
Klaviyo?
Yes.
It has a lot more API features where you can pull in automated images and other things too, which is pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love everything you're doing with Seeds of Time. I think you've given a lot of great feedback to business owners who are just starting. Let's walk through a little bit of the journey at Young Living. I know, like when I started, I think we were at like 700 million and we grew to 2 billion, something like that, right? And you were obviously there a lot longer before me. Walk me through kind of some of those like key moments at Young Living and what was it that made it grow from what it was when you started to a $2 billion company when you left, in the digital world, outside the digital world, behind the scenes with like the tools for the brand partners versus on front. I know we went through multiple like website redesigns. We changed technology multiple times. Walk us kind of through that journey and the key points. If I'm a business owner that's like a multi-million-dollar business and I want to grow into the billion-dollar business, what is it that besides luck and timing, obviously that's a key part for a lot of businesses, what levers can they pull in the marketing, on the marketing side of things to grow? Okay,
so the biggest challenge during that growth that we had, yes, digital was a big piece of that, but I would even step back and say keeping the product in stock. So that was our biggest challenge. And when that product was out, it didn't matter how good the website was functioning. It was definitely it was, the end of the world. Things exploded at that point and we had to pick up all the pieces. So supply chain side was probably the area that we focused the most on, which also meant digital got pushed aside. And we needed both. We needed to make sure that our product offering was sustainable and that we could make sure that we were offering those products at the right time. But digital then had to perform like it needed to. So on the digital side, I think the redesigns, every time we went through a redesign, we would always see an increase in sales. So there is something to say that having a website that functions smoothly, that performs the way that it should, that visually is a better storyteller, it does boost sales. And we see every single time, like every single redesign. And I'm telling you, I've probably been through 4 or 5 in my two decades there. We saw a major increase in sales. And so that's exciting. It means that we were doing something right, I think, and that the reason and the cost behind doing the redesign was worth it. I would also say that making sure on the ability for them to manage their business on the back end, that became super important as well, right? So the reporting side for the top leaders. Now, this is unique to the direct sales space, but for them to be able to manage their business well, that reporting and the ability for them to have access to data was just as important as it was to us as marketers. And so we were always constantly trying to generate and provide more reports so that they could manage their business as well. And that helped us too. It took a little bit more pressure off of us. The other big thing that we started to see is influencers popping up that loved the oils and loved the product.
Yeah.
And that became really challenging to keep up with too. But they also became the face. And so it took a little bit of pressure off of us and allowed them to really help grow the company. Influencers are interesting because if they pick a product that they love and it's maybe a B or C product and it quickly becomes an A, then you have, all new problems and challenges that you're trying to overcome. But I think that their ability to communicate in an authentic way it surpasses the way that a marketer can market. And so if you can find those authentic influencers, I think that is just a sweet spot for any business. When we went through our last rebrand right before, just recently within the last, 3 or 4 years, the goal was for us to come across the brand itself to come across more as an influencer. And seeing that transition as we started to go down that path was really exciting. We actually started to see us come across, at least on the social space, as a friend, as not only the authority figure in authority in essential oils, but also just that partner, right? Like I'm calling up my girlfriend because I have a health issue that I want her to help solve. And that changed the way that Young Living's brand started to be perceived. So I said a few things in there, but just from a brand perspective, being approachable, coming across more authentic and raw on social is really important. It doesn't always have to be polished. I think those are big pieces that we experienced.
One of the things that Young Living has over a lot of other companies, which a lot of our audience is, our audience is a global audience. I've interviewed people from all over the world, from Pakistan to London to Hong Kong, everywhere, right? And one thing that I love about that is that we have a diverse audience that is global. A lot of them think global. So for some of those companies that are out there that are considering going global, whether it's just, selling to Canada or just Mexico or just one place versus, 80 countries or whatever, what struggles did Young Living go through as they expanded internationally, and how did you overcome those?
On the branding side, which is probably where I spent the most of my time and most of my career, it was trying to force an American brand into other markets. I think that was our biggest mistake. I do believe in brand consistency. I do believe that when you see, the golden arches for McDonald's across the globe, that's important, right? That's recognizable. That's iconic. Those things are extremely important. But there are pieces of your brand that should be localized. And there are experts in market that can probably provide that better than you can. And so I do think partnering with individuals in markets, extremely important. Learning from, or finding a mentor that's done it before that knows in different countries what to expect. I think that's extremely important. I do feel like we kind of flew blind trying to take an American brand and just basically slap it across the world and say, hey, buy our products. I would say find those elements of your brand that are sacred. A logo, that's pretty sacred. Don't change that. Don't, customize that for a specific market. But is there a product mix that might be a little bit unique or a little bit more acceptable in another market? Sure. Right. So if your top 10 oils in the US aren't the top 10 in another market, that's okay. Customize that starter kit for that other market. So I do think that there's a need to really tailor to those markets. On the digital front, when we went into Asia specifically, our mobile was awful and they let us know. Right. So there is a higher expectation in some of those foreign markets. And they're less forgiving of your mistakes. And so you need to make sure you're ready before you enter another market. And you need to make sure you're mobile friendly. An app was like, they couldn't believe we didn't have an app, right? It was like, that was just an expectation. And so there's definitely expectations in other markets that on the digital space, you just show up and you're already there. Amazon is another example. I'm sure people have said it on the podcast before, but the fact that you can order something and you get free shipping and you get it fast, that's an expectation now. So brands that can't deliver that or fulfill on that, that's not looked on very, very nicely. And so I think there's other factors that are happening that are also making going global and doing it the right way important. If you go in and you do it the wrong way, I think that it's harder to then fix those issues. It's better to go in slow with a strategic plan than to just show up fast and hope it works.
Smart. That's great advice. So, I mean, I remember expanding into some of those markets and then having to pull back a little bit and being like, oh, what did we do?
We weren't ready.
Fix this first. And
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Lyndi, there's you have lots of experience on both sides, on being a business owner now and on the Young Living side. Did we miss anything else that we'd like to talk to about business and just growth in the digital space for any business owners out there?
Oh, that's a big question. I think that we've covered some of the big topics. Man, I guess I'll go back to my leadership experience, my leadership skills. The people you put around you will make or break you as far as you as a business owner, you as a leader in a business, you growing a business. I can't emphasize the importance of having the right people around you. And Eli didn't pay me to say this, but I hired him because he knew more about the digital space than I did. And I will say that was the best decision that I made. I will always say, find people that know more about whatever you're trying to hire for than you do. If they don't, do not hire that person. I don't care how much you like them. I don't care if they're your buddies. Unless they're pushing you and they know more, they're not the right hire. And hiring the right people, surrounding yourself with the right people is I would put that above probably anything, is just getting the right people around you. That's always my number one advice to any business owner.
Isn't that Henry Ford said that, right? He's like, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I never am, but the people around me are. And that's why I hire them. And that's why he grew the way he did.
Yes. Yeah, and he said it a lot more eloquently than I did. But yes, that is my motto.
Yeah. Lyndi, where do you see the digital space going in the future? Okay, listen up real quick. I promise I'm going to get you right back to the episode. But are you frustrated that your product or service isn't getting the right amount of visibility it deserves online? If so, and you want my help guiding you through the SEO optimization, go to fireusmarketing.com/SEO to get my free SEO guide. It talks about all levels of SEO: local SEO, regional SEO, national SEO, and international SEO. It should give you everything you need to optimize your website at a basic level. If you'd like help beyond that, feel free to hit me up at fireusmarketing.com. I'd be happy to jump on a call and talk through your needs. Now let's get back to this episode.
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I'm really excited. I think AI has completely shifted the way that we look at digital and marketing. I would say I think AI is shaking up the way that any of us look at marketing. It's funny because I see, digital or AI photos, videos, and I'm thinking, how will my kids ever know what's real and what isn't? Because it looks so genuine. So I think there's risk in that, but it's also exciting to see what we can do. I think that AI and digital really is going to help. I think we're going to see more immersive experiences, both physically, like at event, but also in the digital space, entering websites that feel more 3D, that are more immersive, where you're getting audio and you're getting, not just visually seeing things, but you're really getting a 360-degree experience. I think when you're entering in spaces physically, I love events. I love to see how the Young Living does a lot of events. And so Seeds of Time gets to do a lot of events, but really creating these immersive experiences where the scent matters. That's not just what you're seeing. It's not just what you're experiencing, but it's everything. It's touch. Are you giving them something when they walk in that they can touch and interact with? And so it's exciting to see where it goes. I think AI and digital will help with a lot of that. We need to take the physical world that we're experiencing and put it into a digital space, right? So I'm excited to enter a website where you feel like you're immersed in that site. You're connecting with the products and people of that company. That's where I think the future of AI will take us, and digital, of course. Yeah.
And I think we're just scratching the surface of that too. I work with a couple of people who literally work all day on their Oculus Quests. Like they're in digital rooms and they have the augmented reality where it pulls up 3 to 5 screens and they're on calls with it. So I think it's only a matter of time. I went to a podcast summit last year and there was one guy who sat in front of me and he had his Oculus Quest on and he was taking notes in the air like this, and it was recording what the person was saying at the same time. And I think we're barely scratching the surface, especially because they're so big. I've seen others that are a lot smaller, and as technology grows, it might turn into just looking like glasses or at some point a contact. And those are exciting times, but it is scary for our kids too. Because I feel like right now we as adults can be like, okay, I think that's AI.
Right.
That could be AI. But our kids growing up just won't know the difference.
Right. It blows my mind.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Some of the fun times we have, every time I have one of these videos pop up, I'll save it. And then at night, I'll show my kids where AI like transforms. Like there's three grandmas sitting on a bench and one of them reaches over to do something and all of a sudden she turns into like a bird and something and then it's like fire, and those are some fun ones to watch. But anyway, Lyndi, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and educate us. Tell us your story, and I'm excited about what you're doing with Seeds of Time. You're a great leader, good business owner, and I can tell that you're passionate about what you're doing, and I've always admired that about you. So thanks again for taking the time and jumping on with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And to everyone else who's listening out there, we'll talk to you guys next week.